We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're discussing some of the most historically polarizing events from the past decade.
I didn't expect to be fighting fascism in my 50s.
Number 10. Roe v. Wade overturned. In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide.
Roe argued that the abortion ban was unconstitutional and asked the court to issue an order that would stop Texas from enforcing the law.
They decided it would be unconstitutional if they didn't protect a woman's right to choose, a landmark moment for individual rights. Tragically, in 2022, the rule was overturned, which felt like a dangerous rollback of personal freedom.
What the court was saying there was this is on par with other sorts of fundamental rights. The right to marry, the right to procreate, the right to take care of one's children.
Abortion is one of the most divisive issues in America, often tied to religion and a person's control over their own body. Despite the overturning, polls have shown Americans consistently support legal abortion. When the law was overturned, one study showed 61% of people supported its legislation, with only 37% opposing it.
With Roe gone, let's be very clear. The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk. It was 3 justices named by one president, Donald Trump, who were the core of today's decision to upend the scales of justice and eliminate a fundamental right for women in this country.
Number 9. Brexit.
It is time for the British people to have their say. It is time for us to settle this question about Britain and Europe.
In 2016, the UK held a referendum on remaining within the EU. It wasn't legally binding, it was essentially an opinion poll. When the results came in, 51.9% of people had voted to leave. Even though they didn't have to leave, the UK Parliament became dead set on the idea. 4 years later, it finally became a reality.
And yes, they will have an overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate by January the 31st.
As of 2025, only 30% of Britons think it was a good idea, with 55% saying it was bad. Only 20% of the people who voted to leave don't regret it. Since the decision, the UK has experienced serious economic hardship. It turns out leaving the largest trade union in the world has major consequences.
What does it feel to be British in the current climate?
I'm ashamed. It's a shambles. I am absolutely disgusted with the state of things. Whenever we do meet people abroad, I do try and say, look, I'm sorry, I didn't vote for this.
Number 8. The Trump era. Unfiltered, unprecedented. Whether you love or hate Trump, you can't deny he's extremely controversial.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
When he first announced he was running for president, a lot of people dismissed it as a joke. Well, they're not laughing now that he's been elected twice. During his first presidency, he enacted a bunch of divisive laws, like a travel ban on Muslims.
The bottom line is that the only reason the killer was in America in the first place was because we allowed his family to come here. That is a fact. And it's a fact we need to talk about.
We're still early into his second presidency, but it's already been much more extreme. One of his earliest decisions was to instigate a trade war between America and China. In 2025, the No Kings protest started, with huge concern that he wanted to become a dictator. His ties to Putin and Kim Jong-un don't help, alongside him getting caught on mic saying he wants to be like Kim.
Organizers say more than 5 million Americans poured into the streets under the banner of No Kings, with the goal of sending President Donald Trump a message.
Number 7. Backlash and counter-movements of George Floyd's murder. In 2020, a white police officer murdered George Perry Floyd Jr., an African-American, in Minneapolis.
Preliminary autopsies conducted by the state and Floyd's family both ruled his death a homicide.
It was a massive tragedy, but the bigger tragedy was that it wasn't a one-off event. People of color are at much higher risk of police brutality in America. It triggered a huge backlash globally, with millions protesting, calling for reform of the oppressive police.
Black lives do not matter to this system. When you, time and time again, you're seeing us being murdered, and time again, you're seeing the police go free.
This was called the Black Lives Matter movement. but it controversially had tons of opponents. Many criticized the opponents, claiming their views were rooted in racial prejudice.
Campaigners hope that the year 2020 will be the last time they'll need to have protests like this again.
Number 6, the fall of Afghanistan and the Taliban's return.
2008, the Taliban controlled huge swaths of rural Afghanistan and even threatened some cities.
There had been a war in Afghanistan lasting from 2001 all the way to 2021. It was kick-started by an American-led coalition which established an Islamic Republic in 2004. It fell to the Taliban in 2021 when they captured the capital, Kabul. Since then, the Taliban have severely abused human rights in the region.
What kind of reasons is it that women and girls are coming here?
Violence against them in the family, violence against them by their husbands, by their brothers, by their family members, by just violence altogether. And they're all coming here because they run away from home and they cannot go anywhere else.
Women are extremely abused, unable to go to school or get a job. The invasion is a contender for being the worst foreign policy disaster of the century. After 2 decades of fighting and immeasurable suffering, many question if the invasion achieved anything lasting.
20 years ago, when the US came here, one of their priorities they proclaimed was women's rights.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the international community has left Afghan women now? What's their situation?
The international community left Afghan women the same way they left Afghanistan. Like a hot potato. Burned their hands, dropped it.
Number 5, January 6th.
Wednesday started like so many Trump rallies had before. But the anger and the tension felt more intense.
The United States of America was founded on the principles of democracy. Well, in 2021, after Trump lost the election, thousands of his supporters decided they were unhappy with democracy.
It was a full-blown, full-scale riot.
They wanted to overturn the election results to keep Trump in power, falsely claiming Biden had won fraudulently. This motivated his fans to storm the United States Capitol building. They were unsuccessful at getting Trump re-elected, but it still caused tons of mayhem. It caused multiple deaths, an unknown number of injuries, and resulted in hundreds of convictions. Unfortunately, on January 20th, 2025, Trump pardoned the majority of those responsible. Number 4, China's treatment of the Uyghurs.
On the streets of Xinjiang, there is still a tension and signs of what this place has been through.
The largest surveillance state in the world is easily China. One of their most prominent tactics for suppressing dissent includes the Great Firewall, which lets them easily censor the internet. One of the most censored topics is their abhorrent mistreatment of the Uyghurs.
That ominous-looking camp was built where we had beautiful dreams as children.
They're a Turkic ethnic group in China's Xinjiang province. They're banned from practicing their religions, and many are being forcibly relocated to labor camps. It's disgusting and has caused huge international outrage. Tragically, China's censorship means many Chinese people are entirely unaware of it. Additionally, even if they wanted to protest, they could be punished harshly.
It's a cultural genocide. It's a very specific purpose, systematic method, and ultimate goal, that is to stamp out Uyghur identity.
Number 3, COVID-19 pandemic misinformation. Anyone who isn't a young child will remember the difficulties of living through the COVID-19 pandemic.
During a public health crisis, a global pandemic, access to reliable public health information, frankly, is essential to combating the virus.
One of the biggest struggles was the overwhelming quantity of misinformation being spread. When vaccines rolled out, there were tons of opponents, with many believing it would do more harm than good.
In terms of all this misinformation coming from a small group of a handful of people, one might look at this and say, look, if it's coming from a small group of people, why don't we just cut those people off the platform? Then you can cut the misinformation off at the source. But the problem is that once you cut those accounts out, the bad actors are smart enough to come up with new accounts or new ways to trick the system, and it becomes a game of whack-a-mole.
This is wildly untrue, but social media made it spread like wildfire. Even Donald Trump got involved, encouraging people to try injecting bleach into their veins. Furthermore, the pandemic coincided with the rollout of 5G, which led to the theory that it spread the virus. Such a belief would be hilarious if there weren't so many people who earnestly believed it.
How much of a role is vaccine misinformation playing in the rise in the cases and hospitalizations?
Well, I actually am more offended by established media organizations promoting falsehoods than even the social media promoting falsehoods.
Number 2, Russia's invasions of Crimea and Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation, in his words, to demilitarize Ukraine.
I mean, judging by those words, this appears to be the worst-case scenario.
Historically, whoever controls Sevastopol in Crimea controls access to the Black Sea. This has caused it to become a target of Russian expansionism for centuries. It was first annexed by Russia in 1783 by Catherine the Great and was officially ceded to Ukraine in 1954. In 2014, Putin decided he wanted to take it back. In 2022, he went a step further and decided to try fully invading Ukraine.
Вже закликав світових лідерів задіяти всі можливі санкції проти Путіна, розпочати масштабну оборонну підтримку, закрити для агресора повітряний простір над Україною. Спільно ми маємо врятувати Україну, врятувати демократичний світ.
He claimed it was to denazify Ukraine, which is largely considered propaganda.
We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history.
There's been intense international backlash, and it's made the rest of Europe fearful of what Putin plans after the invasion. The front line has barely moved in 2 years, so it's unclear who will come out on top.
And that's why the next phase of this conflict will be so decisive. It will determine how long this war lasts. Will Ukraine be able to go on the counteroffensive, break Russia's army and liberate its territory and win a true victory? Or will Russia succeed in turning this into a bloody stalemate and a war that could last for years?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1, the Israel-Hamas war.
I'm a human being.
Yes, you are. So are they.
So I do not think about this.
You're thinking about tribalism, thinking of your own people to the exclusion. It would be understandable to think of your own people or your own children first, but to think about other people, other children, not at all, that seems sociopathic.
In 1947, Palestine was governed by Britain. That same year, the UN decided to partition the region into 2 states, Israel and Palestine, one Jewish, one Arab. In 1948, Britain left, and the region has been in turmoil since. According to Amnesty International, Israel maintains an apartheid regime where Palestinians are treated as less than Israelis.
The 3 million Palestinians there and the 2.3 million in Gaza do not want an Israeli occupation or a blockade.
After being backed into a corner by Israel for decades, the organization Hamas rose to prominence, and its military division retaliated brutally. After the brutal October 7th attacks, a full-blown war broke out. Countries like South Africa have instead labeled it a genocide, and now the Gaza Strip has been almost entirely reduced to rubble.
Israeli leaders announced a crippling blockade in response to Hamas's attack on October 7th, in which nearly 1,200 people were killed. 251 were taken captive.
Words aren't capable of summarizing how tragic the situation is, which has caused overwhelming suffering.
So what's the solution then?
يعني نضحك على بعض احنا بنضحك على بعض نحكي جوكينج يعني هلا انت بتحكي نكته ما في حل.
What do you think was the most contentious geopolitical event of the past decade? Let us know in the comments below.
Burned their hands, dropped it.